No one knows exactly when the first whispers began. Some say they've always been there, riding the waves like echoes from a time before memory. But for Daniel Crowe, an oceanic archaeologist obsessed with the lost continent of Mu, the whispers became something else. An invitation. A curse. It started after he retrieved an artifact from the ocean floor, deep within the Devil's Sea, a place where navigation equipment failed, and compasses spun like frenzied insects. The artifact was a tablet, ancient and blackened, covered in pulsating symbols that seemed to breathe under the light. The moment he touched it, the air on the ship turned thick and heavy. The metal walls of the vessel groaned as though the sea itself had grown heavier. That night, Daniel dreamed of Mu. A city swallowed by time, its spires jagged and reaching like broken fingers. The streets were lined with figures, tall and emaciated, their mouths stretched open in silent screams. Their flesh was pale and translucent, their eyes like dark, depthless voids. They were waiting for him. He woke up gasping, his lungs burning as if he'd been drowning. But when he turned on the light, his nightmare followed him. The whispers. At first, they were faint, a breeze through unseen corridors. Then they grew closer, circling his bed, his skin prickling as something watched from the darkness. "You should not have taken it." The voice did not come from his ears. It was inside his head, behind his ribs, slithering through his veins like cold, black water. Then his crew began to vanish. Carter, a deep-sea diver, walked straight into the ocean at dawn, his face eerily serene. They never found his body. Ramirez, the ship's engineer, was discovered in his bunk, his lips cracked and blue, his mouth filled with seawater. No explanation. No leaks. One by one, they disappeared, until only Daniel remained. The ship was silent now, floating alone in an ocean that had never felt so endless. He locked himself in his cabin, gripping the artifact, his hands trembling. He traced the symbols, whispering their shapes aloud, desperate for an answer, for some kind of salvation. And the whispering answered back. The lights flickered, then died. The temperature plummeted. The air thickened. Footsteps. Wet, dragging footsteps. The door to his cabin creaked open. Daniel turned, his breath frozen in his throat. And there it stood, the ghost of Mu. No longer a shadow. No longer a whisper. It was tall, its bones jutting beneath bloated, translucent skin, the veins inside pulsing with something black and alive. Its mouth hung wide, too wide, filled with rows of needle-like teeth that did not belong to any human. The stench of rotting seaweed and ancient decay filled the room. It took a step closer, and the ship groaned. Another step. Daniel tried to scream, but his voice had left him. The figure reached out a hand, long, skeletal fingers curling, pulling him in. His vision blurred. His lungs collapsed. He was sinking, though he had not moved. The cabin faded into the dark abyss, walls dissolving into cold, crushing water. He thrashed, his mind spiraling. And then he saw them. The others. His crew, suspended in the blackness, their eyes empty, their mouths still whispering. And then they opened their lips wider, too wide, and from their throats came a sound that did not belong to this world. A scream that shattered the silence of the deep. The ship was found weeks later, floating in still waters. Empty. Not a single soul remained. But deep beneath the waves, where the ruins of Mu slumbered, the whispers continued, waiting for the next fool to listen. If you like my video, don't forget to subscribe.